Hello again, my friends. Here we are into February 2014. Unbelievable, isn't it? I hope you've all had a beautiful Christmas with the baby Jesus. Today is the 6th of February and it happens to be our big national day, Waitangi Day, the day that our national treaty was signed over 160 years ago. I want to begin with just a wee word about that, if I may. Just a tiny prayer. God of all peoples, we share as Pākehā and Māori in this land as people of the treaty. We are rediscovering the meaning of tino rangatiratanga, partnership and co-responsibility, the integrity of common responsibility and the richness of our national life. It's a lovely way to start. And our theme for this month is governance and rules. And there's about 2 million ways of looking at that. So I want to look at it in a very sort of homespun way. And start off thinking about what rules really mean to each of us. And to do that I want to go back to the Gospels. It's always a good place to start, don't you think? Jesus gave us 2 wonderful examples of the different ways of treating rules in his time. The first one I want to mention is it came up about paying their taxes for that year or whatever it was, and his oppressors and accusers, the Pharisees, were accusing him of not paying his taxes. So he dealt with that beautifully by getting St. Peter or somebody to catch a fish. And in the fish's mouth was a whole shekel. And apparently, according to the story, the tax was half a shekel. So what Jesus did was get the shekel out of the fish's mouth and give it to Peter to pay on his behalf and Jesus' behalf. So he was very, very sincere about paying his taxes as a good citizen of his land. And that's a lovely story. The other story is exactly the opposite. Jesus and his disciples are walking through some cornfields on the Sabbath day. And according to the rule of the oppressors of the Pharisees, they were not allowed to eat the corn on the Sabbath. They were hungry and thirsty, so Jesus encouraged them to eat the corn. Because, you see, he had a really good idea what a stupid rule it was. It was utterly ridiculous. It had nothing to do with anything, really. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about our Saviour as a human being on our earth, being able to discern what were rules that were that of good citizenship, of keeping our towns, our cities, our country maintained in the proper way, as against silly, petty rules that have nothing to do with anything. Which leads me on then to suggest that, in a way, the rules that keep us as good citizens are actually very simple. Just imagine what would happen if there was no road code. Just imagine the total... Well, we'd all be dead in a week, wouldn't we? Let's face it. We'd kill one another. That's just one small example of what it means to have, through governance, to have good rules of the road. And there are thousands of other things like that. But it's actually deeper than that, isn't it? It's about the code that starts with do as you would be done by. Do to others as you would like them to do to you. It's almost that simple. That is both simple and profound. If I take that seriously, then I'm going to be living according to the rules that are worthwhile living by. A tiny example, when I was a young nursing sister, it seemed to us in my group that more emphasis was placed on having the corners of the bed mitered than on having the patient comfortable. Well, I ask you. So to save our own skin, we managed to achieve both. We very quickly learned to do mited corners to keep ourselves out of trouble, but we spent most of our time keeping the patients comfortable. These are the silly rules that are useless, and so what we're talking about here is common sense. Unfortunately, common sense is far from common. And because we live in a society which has become a me society, I'm precious, I'm all important, I'm everything. When you've got that happening, then you are going to have rules creeping up and being almost enshrined that are useless and stupid. Today I have just come from a wonderful Eucharist where our parish priest talked about our treaty and our day, and it reminded me that we are now living in an era where we have a new Pope, and he's already breaking down the silly rules to which we have been bound for centuries, not just years but centuries. So maybe this is a time to rejoice in governance in a new sense, and to look forward with excitement and with maturity to what we can do about governance and changing rules that no longer fit with us, and looking towards ones that will help to nourish and develop our faith and our mission in wonderful ways. So thank you for being with me on this first month of our year. Go well and go with your God.